Most people think working until 60 is responsible, but what if it's actually the riskiest financial move you could ever make?
Hello, Rainbow people. It's David.
And John.
This is Queer Money, brought to you by Optimize Investment Partners. More on that soon. And today, we're breaking down why you don't have to work past 55. And more importantly, how do you build a plan that lets you stop working sooner than you ever thought possible? So a caveat here, this episode is really for those people who are either really close to or are past 55 and are continuing to work, but also have significant savings. And those folks who are under the age of 45 who think that they're going to have to work forever. Want to give some options here.
Exactly. And we're really close to having 15,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. Please help us cross that threshold. Drop us a green heart if you'd love to retire by 55. Then tell us one step you're taking to actually make that happen.
So we're going to be talking about 3 traps that people fall into that keep them working forever. And then we're going to talk about how do you solve for those traps. All right, so this first big trap is the big numbers trap. This is the lie that keeps most people working. This idea that you need millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to be able to retire.
Trap.
Yeah, it definitely is. The truth is you only need millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to retire if you're living in some very specific cities in the United States. Reality, retirement isn't a math problem. For most folks, it's a geography problem. Granted, if you want to retire in a city like LA, New York, San Francisco, even maybe Fort Lauderdale, some other smaller locations in California, you're going to have to keep on hustling. You're probably going to have to work past 55. You might even have to work past 65. And for some of you, you might have to work forever to be able to live in one of those cities and retire in one of those cities. You see, data shows that the average American retiree spends about $4,000 to $5,000 a month. So if you live in one of those cities, you know $4,000 to $5,000 does not go very far. The other thing is that for most retirees, Social Security makes up about 30 to 40% of the amount of money that they need in retirement. So keep in mind how much that Social Security will go if you're living in one of those very expensive cities.
So if moving abroad is an option for you, as we've been discovering through this International Retirement Abroad Gay Cities series, you can retire on much less. Places like Mexico, Costa Rica, Greece, Thailand, even parts of France. Your dollars can go a lot further. You don't need more money necessarily then. You just need a plan that's not straight, white, and American made.
Right. If you do move abroad, don't think of it as leaving an old life behind. Think about it as designing a brand new shiny one. And we know how much you gays love brand new and shiny. So be sure to subscribe here to our YouTube channel, in part because every other week we cover a new angle or new country that you can retire abroad to. In between those episodes, we cover everything else that you need to know to create your ideal retirement, because retirement planning is more than just working longer or working harder. It's all about your systems.
Okay, the next trap we're going to talk about is the 1 more year trap. So what's going on here with this? This is where we're like, I'm just going to work 1 more year, and then it becomes 1 more year, and then suddenly 1 year becomes 5 years, and 5 years become 10 years. Next thing you know, you're like 65 years old, 70, deciding if you're ever going to retire.
Wishing that you had done it in 2020.
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, of course. This isn't for everyone. The data I'm going to share here in a second, this is sort of the rich gays that everybody seems to hate on social media, but nearly half of retirees wish they had retired earlier. Only about 16% of retirees systematically draw down their portfolios, and around 30% don't tap their retirement savings at all. Both sets of our parents are living completely off of Social Security and not touching their retirement nest egg, but they spent so much time and energy saving and investing. Now they're not tapping into it. And many retirees spend well below the traditional advice of 4% withdrawal. So they're not tapping into this money.
Right. So the translation here is that many people aren't running out of money. They're just not using it.
It's a nice problem to have.
I was going to say, yeah, that sounds like a nice problem. But why? Why are people not using that money? Well, for many people, it's fear. And the real fear here that a lot of folks have is living longer than their money lasts.
Well, that's the whole bag lady syndrome.
It is exactly the bag lady syndrome that many of you have shared with us, that you have that fear. You see, we spend, in many cases, 30, 40, sometimes even 50 years with this mindset of work and save, work and save, work and save, and work and save. And then all of a sudden, a day comes and somebody says, okay, spend. And people are like, this is hard. I don't know how to shift to this. Granted, there are plenty of you who enjoy spending. So maybe you can step into this this a little easier, but I would venture to say that that's not necessarily the case for everyone, even some of those spenders. You see, there is a psychological shift that is hard to actually happen from being a saver to being a spender, especially when you no longer have a job that just says, well, I'll make more money. There's also a self-insurance mindset. People kind of get into this space of how much is enough? How much is the safe amount to withdraw? What happens if the market drops? Maybe I shouldn't take out any money out in case the market drops. Or what if I live to 95? And what if, 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 and the only way to make those what ifs go away is to just keep on working. The problem that most folks have is not necessarily that they don't know how to stop working. It's they don't know how to live a life when they're spending because they don't have a spending strategy for retirement.
And as the good book Die with Zero says, don't die with too much money. A great tool for this is the Happy Gay Retirement Calculator with retirement drawdown that David here built. It lets you know about how much you're able to spend year after year. And because we never truly know exactly when we're going to die, it's not an exact science, but it's the closest that you're going to get. The calculator is available in the Crib Money Retirement Vault, which we'll link to in the description below.
One of the other reasons for working just one more year is people have an identity problem. Who am I without my job? I mean, a lot of times when people are asked the question, who are you or what do you do? What do we say? We say our job title. We tell people what we do for a living, right? Many people are afraid that if they give up their job, they're going to become irrelevant. And that's not necessarily the case. You aren't your job. You are not your job title. You're the person who shows up on the weekends and on vacation. And if you love that version of yourself and that's the best version of you, then that's a preview of what retirement is really going to be like.
So for those of you who are stuck in this sort of one-year trap mindset, think of it this way. What if the last 5 years of your career are the best 10 years in retirement? And as we're dealing with right now with some health issues, that's feeling all too real.
All right, the next trap we're going to talk about is the one more trip trap.
Not trick, it's a trick. There's an abundant supply of tricks.
Yeah. The idea here is this is really the I want to upgrade my life tax. We make decisions that keep us from being able to retire. I want one more once in a lifetime trip. That trip that costs us $10,000, $15,000 that we have to save up for a couple of years to be able to take, right? So we delay retirement to be able to save up for that or to pay it off because we put it on credit cards. Or it's the idea that we are going to buy a new home in our 50s and sign up for a 30-year mortgage. And that mortgage is at a point where we're no longer able to retire. We have to keep working. Or I want to squeeze in one more luxury car purchase. That $1,000, $1,500 car payment prevents you from being able to retire. The data shows that most people have their peak spending years the 2 to 3 years before they retire because they still have a job, and the 2 to 3 years after they retire because they want to get in a lot of fun during that time period. So we oftentimes call these the go-go years when you have a little bit more motivation and physical ability to do things. After that come the slow-go years where your body is starting to decline and maybe you don't have as much motivation to get out and experience things. And then you have the no-go years where physically you're not able to do pretty much anything and you're kind of trapped.
But why do I feel like I'm in my slow-go years right now? So let's be real. The truth is that this isn't an I want more problem. It's an I have enough problem. Most of us have more than enough. If you're 50, 55 years old and you're still not happy, we'll guarantee you it's not because you don't have enough stuff.
Right. So what if you could spread that spending out and be able to do it so that you could retire early? You could actually enjoy more and have more of those go-go years when your body says, I want to be able to do things, and you can experience more and have fewer of those slow-go and no-go years.
The final trap here, and this is more for the high income earners, is the lifetime tax trap. This is sort of the hidden cost of staying employed. Again, this is more for the high income earners, so a lot of us don't have this problem, but for most people, working longer can actually cost you more in taxes. The reality is that more working years equal higher lifetime taxable income. Delayed retirement means fewer low income years. So if you wait until 73, 75 years old to retire, your required minimum distributions kick in, Social Security is triggered, and your withdrawals stack up on top of each other. Suddenly, you're paying more in lifetime taxes than you would had you just retired earlier.
The other thing to consider consider is that when you turn 65, you start paying for Medicare. And it's the 2 years prior to turning 65 that they use to calculate how much you're going to be paying for your Medicare. So if those are your high earning years, the amount of money that you're going to pay on a monthly basis for your Medicare is going to be a lot higher. So the result here is that you can get pushed into higher tax brackets later in life. You go from earning a paycheck to all of a sudden having forced withdrawals, Social Security, investment income, and all of that gets taxed at the same time, which can bump you up into a higher tax bracket. It's not always worse, not for everyone, but for many high savers, high earners, this can be true, especially if most of the money that you've saved for retirement is not in a retirement or tax deferred account. So if you have a brokerage account and you're taking out withdrawals, you're going to be adding a lot of capital gains to your taxes that year. So now what? Well, you find a system that works for you. You see, we want to help you shift from this idea of fear to control. And we're going to provide you with 2 systems or 2 steps that help you do this. The first one is actually knowing your numbers. This helps resolve that trap number 1 of I need big money to be able to retire. You see, when we know what our lifestyle is going to be in retirement, we also know then what our numbers are. We get clear on what our life is going to look like. And that clarity kills the fear that we might have, which is why we created the systems that help us to be able to retire early. And we want to share those with you so that you don't have to go at it alone. You know, part of the Queer Money Retirement Vault, we have the Hopes and Dreams exercise. And really what this does is this helps you understand, what am I going to retire to? Not what am I retiring from, but what am I going to retire to? What will my life look like? What do I want my life to look like? The next tool that we have is the 10 vital retirement numbers. This one you can get for free via a link in the description or in your podcast player. And really what this does is it provides you with the numbers that help you understand the foundation of what kind of lifestyle am I going to be able to afford? Because you put those numbers then into the Happy Gay Retirement Calculator. That calculator then builds for you or helps you understand this is the amount of money I'm actually going to be able to spend throughout my life without running out of money. And of course, if you want even more clarity on all of that, we can definitely hop on a call with you to help you understand your numbers specifically and the kind of lifestyle that you can build.
And then step number 2 is to align your current life today with your numbers. This helps resolve trap number 2, the 1 more year trap, and also trap number 3, the 1 more trip trap. Create a spending plan to align with your life today and start changing yourself from the investor and saver mindset to the spender mindset. But how do you do this smartly and strategically? Well, what you want to do is figure out how to get a return on happiness from your spending. Get clear on where your money is going and what joy that's actually providing. Instead of spending mindlessly, you want to start spending strategically and align your spending with what actually, as they used to say, sparks joy. So how do you do that? That sounds like a little bit of a challenge. But in the Queer Money Retirement Vault, we also have the premium spending analysis with return on happiness estimator. If you go through this, you're able to itemize all your expenses, figure out where that money is going, and then provide an assessment of the actual joy you're getting from that spending. The natural result of spending on what makes you truly happy is that you spend less money because the source of your happiness, you realize, isn't coming from your spending. And this can reduce lifestyle inflation, as we've seen, anywhere from 10 to 30%. That is more money you can keep in your retirement accounts to grow longer and not have to tap until later. And then to help you manage your expenses from month to month, week to week, we've also got the no budget budget, which is the simplest way to budget your expenses on an ongoing basis. Retirement isn't just about hitting your number. It's about being clear on knowing what number you actually need for the life that you truly want.
Some other things that we want to consider here, having a bridge strategy. This bridge strategy is really designed for those folks who are retiring early, people who are retiring before the age of 59 and a half. It's important to have this as a way to know where you can access or how you can access your money. The important thing here is to remember that you don't need access to all of your money at once. One of the things you want to do is see all of the options that are available to you. One of the important ones is having money in a brokerage account. A brokerage account means you have investments that you can tap anytime that you want. And so that's an important thing in early retirement because you don't have to pay penalties on that money when you withdraw that from a brokerage account. Another thing thing to think about are Roth contributions. When you make contributions to your Roth accounts, it's basically divided into the contribution and the growth. The contributions you can pull out at any time and not have to pay taxes or penalties on that money because you put that money in already taxed. Now, the growth that you cannot tap without having to pay penalty or taxes, especially if you are under the age of 59 and a half. The other way to tap some of your retirement money is through the rule of 55. Now, IRS rule 55, it allows you, if you are working, let's say you're working for an employer and you have a 401k or a 403b, and you decide to leave that employer, or you get laid off, or heaven forbid, you get fired, you can tap that money. As long as you're over the age of 55, you can withdraw from that account and not have to pay the 10% penalty. Now, keep in mind, if you do withdraw money from that account, it is money that you didn't pay taxes on when you were putting it in, so you will pay taxes when you're taking it out.
The other rule that you can take advantage of is the rule that David and I are taking advantage of right now, and that's IRS Rule 72T, which lets you access your retirement accounts early without paying the 10% penalty by committing to a series of substantially equal periodic payments for at least 5 years or until you reach the age of 59 and a half, whichever is longer. But breaking that schedule does trigger penalties retroactively.
I think it's important to remember here when it comes to your retirement accounts, especially, or even your brokerage account, that money isn't trapped. You just need to be shown the right doors on how to be able to access that.
The other strategy to consider right now is geo arbitrage. There are many reasons to think about retiring abroad, not just political ones. Keep this in mind. International living anywhere costs about 30 to 60% cheaper than anywhere in the US. This is kind of what we're finding out through our whole international retirement gay city series. Also, rent can be 2 to 3 times cheaper than in the United States, and healthcare can be 50 to 80% cheaper, and oftentimes better healthcare. It's a bigger life, different zip code, half the cost.
So, cost of living got you stressed, healthcare bills got you pressed. Portugal is calling. The Optimize Portugal Golden Opportunities Fund builds your wealth, qualifies you for the Golden Visa, which means residency in Portugal and possibly the rest of Europe, and gives your whole family the freedom to thrive. Learn more about it with the link below in this video. The real risk isn't retiring early. Maybe the real risk is your job. Jobs aren't safe anymore. We just heard that 30,000 people are being laid off from Oracle. Layoffs happen late for many of us. Tons of you have told us that you're over the age of 50 and you've been pushed out of work. This is something that happened to my dad in his early 50s. The other thing is our bodies don't last forever. Our health declines. We want to be able to actually have a body that allows us to enjoy our retirement. We want those go-go years. So the risk isn't retiring too early. It's actually retiring too late.
You don't need permission to retire early. You don't need millions and millions of dollars. You definitely don't need to keep working until you're exhausted just to feel safe. What you do need is a clear retirement number, better systems, and the courage to choose your life over your paycheck.
So again, we would love your help in reaching 15,000 subscribers. So this message of early retirement, fabulous retirement, and places where to retire can get to more queer folks. Drop us a green heart if you would love to be able to retire by 55, and then share with us one of the things that you're doing to make that happen.
And then coming up soon, we're working on an episode to calculate how much money is enough for your fabulous retirement of your dreams and what it takes to get there. So make sure you're subscribed and then join us next time. Meanwhile, stay fabulous,
not fabulously broke. And if you're curious how we're retired early using the rule of 72T, we break it all down in this video here.